Welcome on in, everybody, to the All Aussie Rules YouTube channel, and we've got a special episode for you today. Season review 2024 for the Brisbane Lions, your 2024 Premiership team. Massive performance from the Lions. We're going to have a look at all the stats, all the numbers, and everything else, all the players behind a Premiership season for the Lions, where at multiple points through the year it didn't look like it was going to be possible for them, but what a performance it was from them, and we will be running through all of that as we've done with every single team. This is the last team to have a season 2024 review, so if you haven't checked out the rest, go check them all out. We're about to go through the Lions. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe as always. Check out the podcast. It goes live on YouTube and Spotify every Monday and Friday, and all the social medias. Plenty of content everywhere. Let's jump into it. Brisbane Lions Premiership team 2024. So they went 14-8 with one draw through the home and away season. Finished fifth on the ladder. Let's jump into game by game of their season. And as you can see, red at the top, green at the bottom. Just the way they would have maybe not drawn it up, but they'd like to see that anyway. Always good to finish the season on a win. If you made the finals, that means you've won the Premiership. So well done to them. They started their year in a very weird fashion. I'm currently rewatching every game from the 2024 season, and last night I did watch their opening round game against Carlton. How that transfolded? How that folded out? I don't even know what word I'm trying to say. Still blows my mind a little bit because Brisbane dominated the first quarter. They were 7 goals up. They were still up at half time. They conceded a couple late in the second quarter, but that third quarter, Carlton just went bang, 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 hit the front, and then it was just an arm wrestle for the rest of the way. And Carlton got the 1-point win against all odds. Crazy result, really. Round 1, they went across to Perth to play Fremantle. Lost by 23 points. Interesting sort of game, but Fremantle just wore them down in the end and got the win. They then had their early season bye to make up for the opening round match before playing Collingwood on Easter Thursday, and they lost by 20 points in what was another weird game. Collingwood dominated the first quarter. Brisbane had probably the most dominant second quarter of the year. Absolutely dominated the football match, but just couldn't quite score from it. I think they had plus almost 20 inside 50s in that second quarter, and just couldn't score. And then Collingwood came back out after half time and performed well again, and Brisbane went down by 20 points. Was then gathered round for round 4, and they finally got their first win against North Melbourne over in Adelaide, Norwood Oval. 70-point winners, comfortable winners, just to get their season going. And at this point, it was well, you never know. They then beat Melbourne at the MCG, which was a huge win by 22 points. At the time, Melbourne were going really well, and it was a bit of a surprise win. They were certainly outsiders going into that one. Followed it up with a loss in the wet to Geelong at the Gabba by 26 points, and then 54-point loss on Anzac Day to GWS at Manuka Oval, which, me personally, was very worried about Brisbane at this point. There was multiple times in the first 7 rounds where I was saying, don't write them off, don't rule them out. They're a team that's very good. They'll bounce back, but that GWS loss was a bad one, let me tell you. But then they followed it up with a really good performance against Gold Coast. They were men down. This is where Logan Morris made his debut. They had players going down left, right and centre, and they wore them down and just got through it. 34-point winners, turned their season around. Followed that up with a surprise draw with Adelaide over in Adelaide at Adelaide Oval. Followed it up with a massive win at the Gabba against Richmond by 119 points. Then going into the bye, they lost to Hawthorn at Marvel by 25, which this was where Hawthorn just started getting going, and it wasn't the end of the world, but 4.5 wins going into the bye was not a great spot to be in, but as you can see from that point on, it was very positive signs from them. If you haven't, I did a mid-season review video I haven't rewatched it, but I have memories of me saying that they could go undefeated for the rest of the season. They didn't quite do that, but they went awfully close. 43-point winners over the Bulldogs at Marvel was a massive win. St Kilda, only 20-point winners at the Gabba, but still solid enough. Smacked Port Adelaide in Adelaide by 79 points, which was a huge win, and probably the point of the season that really cemented them flying home. Beat Melbourne by 5 points at the Gabba in a dour performance, but good enough to get the win. At this point, Melbourne was still fighting for finals. Beat Adelaide by 11 points at the Gabba, so again, not a dominant performance, but got the job done. Went over to the West and beat West Coast by 13. Then held on for a very tight win over Sydney at the Gabba, which just kind of signalled their intent against a team that was one of the best of the season. Gold Coast, they beat by 28 points. Second time this year they've knocked off the Suns. They then beat St Kilda at Marvel by 85 points. So third big road win in this little spell after the bye. So they beat Doggies at Marvel by 43, Port Adelaide by 79 at Adelaide Oval, and then St Kilda by 85 at Marvel. That's three massive road wins in a 8 or so week stretch. Then a little bit of a rough patch. They lost to the Giants by 18 points at the Gabba, and Collingwood by 1 point at the MCG. They looked like they were the winners in that one most of the way, but Collingwood kicked a couple late and stole that one. They finished their season at the Gabba with a 20-point win over the Bombers, which qualified them 5th on the ladder. They looked like they were going to get top 4 until they dropped those couple late, but still 5th on the ladder. Home elimination final against Carlton, and boy, oh boy, did they turn up early in that one. They kicked the first 61 points of the match. They were leading 61-zip just before halftime. Carlton, granted, did come back a little bit, but Brisbane probably had it in cruise control in that second half. Didn't concern them too much, the comeback, really. They followed it up with the Giants at NG, and this game is another one that looked like it was over. They were down, Brisbane, by 43 or 44 points. My brain just doesn't quite work and doesn't quite remember, but it was 40-something points in the third quarter when Brisbane just all of a sudden turned it on, kicked lots of goals, got back, and won by 5 points in an incredible performance. Prelim final at the MCG against Geelong in what was one of the club's all-time wins, really. They played well in the first quarter. Geelong dominated the second quarter, kicked 8 goals, went in at half-time down for the second week in a row. But they just fought their way through that third and fourth quarter, just kept grinding through. Geelong then hit the front again with a few minutes to go, and it looked like Ollie Henry had sent Geelong to the grand final. But Brisbane just kept coming. Their small forwards got it done. Their midfielders kept getting it done, and they got over the line. Got them through to a grand final against Sydney at the MCG. And boy, oh boy, was that one-way traffic. They won by 60 points in a fantastic match from them. No one played bad. They got the job done. They won it from 5th, just the second team, I believe, in history to win a premiership from 5th spot. Obviously, hasn't always been 5 spots in the finals, but still a fantastic effort. And let's have a look at some of the stats behind their season. So these are their numbers for the last 3 years. 2022, they went 15-7. They made it 6th on the ladder. We'll get into some of the other stats in a minute, but some really good numbers there. They made finals. They didn't progress too far through finals. I think they lost in the semi-final. No, they did make a prelim final, I think. Yes, they did. They lost to Geelong. They got pumped by Geelong in the prelim final. So they got through reasonably well. Still top 4 finish once you include finals, so really good performance, really. 2023, they went 17-6, finished second on the ladder, made it through to the grand final and lost by less than a kick to Collingwood. And then this year, they break through for the win. 14 wins, 8 losses, and a draw. Funny that this was their lowest win season out of the 3, and yet it's the season they won it all. Finished 5th on the ladder, as we said, progressed all the way through to the finals. Players used each season, pretty similar to the AFL average, 37, 35, 37. Age has not really changed, which tells you that they're bringing in a lot of youth each year, which is a really good sign. 26.2, 26.2, 26.3. It is towards the upper echelon of the league. It's certainly above the AFL average, but it's staying very consistent, which is a really good sign. Meanwhile, their experience is growing, so that's another good sign. They're one of the more experienced teams, but yet still not quite as old as some of the others like Collingwood and Geelong. So really good sign there for the Brisbane Lions. A look at some of the numbers. Obviously a lot of stats here. We're not going to go through them all, but feel free to pause, have a look at some of it that we don't go through. Starting with points for and against, stayed very similar to last year, this year's numbers, which is not that surprising. They won the Premiership, but they certainly weren't as dominant in win-losses during the season this year, but their numbers still stayed pretty similar in a lot of ways. 94.4 points for, 76.4 against. Really good numbers offensively, defensively. Accuracy was pretty poor this year. Last year it had dropped from 2022. This year it dropped even further, and that was one of their major issues. They had two major issues in their forward line in the early part of their season: their accuracy and their forward efficiency. They tidied up the forward efficiency really well in that second half of the year and became one of the best teams at it in the league. The accuracy didn't quite tidy up as well, but the forward efficiency certainly turned around. That's down towards the bottom of the graph. Ended up being one of the best in the league at it. They dominated territory. They did last year. They did the year before. They are a really high inside 50 team, which makes it hard to be good at forward efficiency. But if you are good at forward efficiency when you're getting lots of inside 50s, you're going to win a lot of games of football, and that's exactly what they've done. Their metres gained went massively up this year, so while the metres against them didn't. So that's a sign that they really did even dominate the territory battle even more this year than they did last year. Certainly bounced the ball really well from end to end. Contested footy got it even better than last year. Uncontested footy last year was not something that they really won ever, really, whereas this year they really did. So a change in game style a little bit there in controlling the ball a little bit more than they did last year. Clearance game, certainly their stoppage clearances is one of the best in the competition, just behind Fremantle. Centre clearances, they're not dominant at, but we'll get into some score sources in a minute and see how that actually played out in terms of getting scores from clearances. The tackle game, not something that they worry about, in all honesty. The numbers, they lost tackle count every year for the last few, and quite massively last year and quite massively this year. It certainly doesn't hurt them. Pressure acts was down on last year, but I don't think that's too big of an issue either. And meanwhile, hit-outs and hit-outs to advantage. Oscar McInerney is a very good ruckman, but he's not someone that dominates the hit-outs to advantage. And that's possibly why Darcy Fort coming in for the grand final in place of the injured Oscar McInerney might not have hurt them too much, because they're not a team that dominates and is used to winning the hit-outs anyway. Jump onto some score sources. So this is their score sources. Over the last 3 years, there's 3 ways to win possession to then convert it into a score. You can get it from a kick-in, you can get it from a stoppage, or you can get it from a turnover. As you can see, not major differences from last year in terms of that. Kick-ins went up in both for and against on last year. Stoppages slightly down overall, 1.7 points down, and also 1.1 against. So a net loss of 2.8 points from stoppages. And turnovers offensively stayed very similar, whereas defensively got better in that regard. You can also win the ball in 3 spots. You can get it in the defensive half, you can get it in the forward half, or you can get it from the centre bounce. They're not a team that scores that much from centre bounce. They also concede more than they do from the centre bounce. which had me concerned with Sydney because they are really good at scoring from the centre bounce. And in all honesty, Sydney did score pretty well from the centre bounce in the grand final. They scored, I think, 20 points. However, Brisbane kicked 5 goals from the centre bounce in the grand final, which was a huge factor in this game. Forward half, defensively, got much better. Conceded 36 points last year, whereas only 31.7 this year per game. So a real improvement there. And the defensive half transition was slightly better offensively, but slightly worse defensively as well. So, some good improvements. Mainly the fact that when it mattered, they stepped up from the centre bounce scoring. We'll now jump into some of the players for season 2024. Sorry, it was just a bit out of frame. These are the players that missed 5 or more games for their season this year. Starting at the top with Tom Doedee. My brain's really working well. He didn't play a game this year. They brought him in from Adelaide and he didn't play a game. So it's going to be a massive in for them next year when he returns to the team. Kitty Coleman, he missed 26. I mean, his numbers last year weren't fantastic, but boy did he play well in the grand final last year. He played about a half of the first game this year before doing his knee, missed the rest of the year, which was heartbreaking for him. But another one that comes into this Brisbane Lions defence, and it's going to be crazy how they fit all these players in next year, in all honesty, because they've got a lot of players to come in. Devon Robinson played a lot of football last year, whereas this year didn't get as many games due to form, due to other reasons, but just not quite as prolific in getting games this year. Jared Lyons has announced that he's retiring as of now. He announced it about a month ago that at the end of the season he would be retiring. He only played a few games this year. Darcy Gardner, he missed 20. Lincoln McCarthy missed 19, which is a huge out for them, no doubt about it. Bruce Revel, first-year player, played about 12 games on the wing. Did pretty well in those, but, I mean, he was a fill-in player for injured players throughout most of the season. A couple more years of development before he's a real factor in playing every game, I would imagine. Will Ashcroft missed 14 games at the start of the year, came into the team and changed their midfield, no doubt about it. He won the Norm Smith. He was clearly one of the top 4 players on the ground in the grand final, had an outstanding game, massive in for them. And when his brother joins the Brisbane Lions next year, it's going to be interesting because apparently he's even better. So we'll see how that plays out. Noah Answorth, he missed 11. Connor McKenna missed 9. Jack Payne, 9. Logan Morris, first year full forward. Outstanding performance from him. We'll get into some numbers in a minute. But he missed 8 games, which was at the start of the year. Once he joined the team, didn't really look back. Played his role, did well. Starkovich missed 6. And Zach Bailey missed 5. That is the players that missed games this year. Or 5 or more games at least. Now we look at best players by position for Brisbane Lions this year. We start, as always, in the back line. Key defenders. Harris Andrews. AFL rating dropped from last year, but in all honesty, he was as good this year as he was last year. Outstanding season from him. Great backman, one of the best in the league, if not the best. Gets the job done week in, week out. No doubt about it. Jack Payne played 18 games, was really solid. Key forwards, Joe Danaher, there's rumours that he might be retiring. I think he goes around again, doesn't he? He was crucial for them all year. He's like their backup ruckman, while also being a key forward. He's their second ruckman every week. He just runs, he gets the ball. He's one of the most versatile forwards there are, really. He's in a way similar to the way Jeremy Cameron plays, in that it's not all about contested footy, contested marks. It's about running around the ground, getting the ball, loose ball, doesn't matter, whatever. He gets the job done. Had a good season. Logan Morris, as I said, first-year player. As a first-year full forward, did his role, was outstanding, no doubt about it. He will only improve from what he's shown this year and potentially has a very good future ahead of him. Eric Hipwood, he did what Eric Hipwood does. pops up occasionally for goals. I don't think he's ever going to be a superstar. He'll probably consistently play games, but I don't think he'll ever be someone that takes over games. Dane Zorko as a medium defender. Change of roles this year. Last year he was a mid-forward, so he'd rotate through the midfield, but also spent a lot of time forward. Due to injuries to Coleman and the like, had to go back as a medium defender, and boy did he thrive in that role. He had an outstanding season. His best season almost ever, certainly for a couple years. Darcy Wilmot was good, also improved on last year. Ryan Lester was solid, didn't miss a game as well, so that's good performance from him. Starkovic bounced back from a disappointing grand final day last year, nailed this season and all the way through, and had a really good performance in the grand final. Noah Answorth was solid, showed improvement, is going to be crucial as a depth player for sure for this team. Medium forwards, Cam Rayner really stepped up his game this year. We had high hopes for him this year, that he would finally show some of the potential show some of the skills from the potential that we saw in him, and sure enough, he did have a very good season. Not a world beater, but certainly did his role, and probably better than most expected him to. Kai Lohman, great season from him. Only played the 3 games last year, but fantastic year this year, especially finals. As the season developed, he got even better and better. He kicked 4 goals in the grand final, great performance. Calamachi, ditto, really got the season going late in the year. Kicked 4 goals in the grand final, kicked a crucial goal late in the prelim final. Really good performance from him all year. I think he kicked 10 goals in their 4 finals, so a good performance from him. Lincoln McCarthy was okay in the 8 games he played. Charlie Cameron didn't miss a game, but certainly didn't have the output he did last year. Just lacked some finishing ability, certainly early season, but even late season. His goal kicking maybe let him down a little bit there. Zach Bailey had a really good year, no doubt, there. Midfielder-wise, I think Lockie Neal, he was a Brownlow medalist in 2023. I personally think his 2024 was a lot better. Umpires didn't agree with me, but he had a fantastic season this year. He was so good all year round and really capped it off playing the grand final, apparently injured for most of it, if not all of it. 35 touches, didn't put a foot wrong all day. Was an outstanding performance from him. Hugh McCluggage, really good season. We're used to him being really good. He was really good in the grand final loss last year. Didn't dominate this year's grand final, but played his role as he did all year round. Josh Dunkley, good season from him, no doubt, as well. Will Ashcroft, as we mentioned, came in mid-season after recovering from his knee that he did last year. Came in, did his role, better than his role in the grand final. Has a bright future ahead of him. Jared Berry does his role week in, week out. Jasper Fletcher was solid. Bruce Revel, as we said, came in as a wingman. More of a depth player at the moment. It is only his first year. We'll see how he develops in oncoming years. The Big O played 25 games this year, was really good. Unfortunately for him, he did his shoulder in the prelim and missed out on playing in the grand final. But he certainly gained some fans on grand final day. The way he held himself, the way he supported his teammates, the way he supported everybody in that club in a week that a lot of people don't react quite so well. So a fantastic effort from him. He's one of my new favourite players. He's an absolute star, and he is a great ruckman, there's no doubt about it. Darcy Fort's not on the list because his rating was quite low this year, but came in and did the job on grand final day. He did get beaten in the ruck, no doubt about it. Grundy was better than him on the day, but he did what he needed to do. He didn't allow Grundy to fully take over the game, and that was huge for him. So that's, player by positions, the best from Brisbane Lions this year. One final thing to look at here is players that weren't on the list this year that were last year. There was a few more retirees, but the only 2 major ones were Daniel Rich, who retired at the end of last year after a pretty solid year last year, and Jack Gunston, who I think he played 17 games for them last year, went back to Hawthorn, had similar output at Hawthorn, and in all honesty, I thought it was a weird decision by Gunston, but it worked out well for him. Probably worked out okay for Brisbane as well, because they picked up Logan Morris, who's come into this team as a full forward, a tall forward, a young forward, and really shown that he can play the game. So it worked out pretty well for the Brisbane Lions as well, in all honesty. So that's 2024 Brisbane Lions Premiership team. Fantastic performance from them this year. Let me know down in the comments what you think we'll see from the Lions in 2025. Will we see them go back to back? Big question. I think, as a lot of people, I think they were my pre-season prediction for the Premiership. We'll go back through that, my prediction video or prediction podcast episode, and have a look at how all my predictions went in maybe this week's podcast, actually. But yeah, they were my pre-season prediction for Premiership. A lot of people had them at the top. Will they go back to back? Let me know what you think in the comments below. I think they're going to be bloody hard to beat. If they survive this year with the injuries they had and the turmoil they faced in both pre-season and during the season, if they can do it this year, they're going to be bloody hard to beat again next year. They had a great season. I'm going to put them on top for next year. I can't see a team at the moment who can challenge them, in all honesty. I think they are the best team in the competition. So that's my thoughts. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to like and subscribe as well. Something like 75% of my watch time from viewers is from non-subscribed people, so why not subscribe? It's free. You'll keep up to date with all the content, and it really helps me. So if you're still sticking around watching it, make sure you hit that subscribe button now. Check out all the socials. We've got them all at All Aussie Rules everywhere. Podcast twice a week, Mondays, Fridays, on YouTube and Spotify. Thanks for watching. This has been Brisbane Lions 2024. They won the Premiership. This has been the review. Catch us on the next one.